Welcome to the Underground.
Turn me up, bitch!
My Little Underground with Peter A.
It's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Make sure you're subscribed anywhere you get podcasts, and be sure to follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MLU Pod, and you can follow me, Peter A, on Twitter, Instagram at itspeter_A. Today we're going back 15 years, 2005. We're going to talk about all the great tunes that came out that year. Well, not every single one of them, just some of my favorites. I'm not going to keep you here that long. But I want to start things off with a few singles before we get into album territory. And these particular singles are from three great vocalists that I think are just remarkable, that have made an impact in music as a whole. A few of them have made a big impact in 2005, as we'll discuss. And we're going to talk about the legend, Miss Mariah Carey. And she had a single out this year, We Belong Together. This song was everywhere. You couldn't blink. You couldn't do anything without hearing this song. Turn on the TV, this song is playing. Turn on the radio, every other radio format, every other station is playing this song. And this song, I think, ages particularly well because it's so beautiful. And Mariah Carey, we all know, a vocal scientist. Now, the instrumental on this song is not the most interesting. It's pretty basic. It does the job, but it's nothing special. But where this song kind of shines is the very passionate proposition of love that Mariah Carey showcases, and its infectious chorus. If you know the song, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Moving on to Rihanna, and she had an incredible debut this year with Pon de Replay. And I think this song is probably 2005's version of what In the Club was, of how monstrous that single was. And the song Pon de Replay is the ultimate party tune. Ages very well, and it has an incredible bridge. And Rihanna has a very unique and very beautiful voice as well. You know, it's not as like powerful and diva-esque as Mariah Carey, but it stands out, and it's quite beautiful. And I think this song is not really about vocals, are not the centerpiece to it. It's more of just the whole atmosphere of the song, and it just brings you right into the party. Great debut from Rihanna. And lastly on this list, we got Fiona Apple with Extraordinary Machine. Now, I think this album, this is her third album, I believe. It still hasn't grown on me yet. I've been listening to it, off and on for a couple of years now. I'm trying to love it like I do Idle Wheel and some of her other stuff, but I don't love it yet. Maybe I will in a few years, but who knows. But one of the tunes that stood out on this track is the title track, the first track, Extraordinary Machine. Incredible way to start off an album. It's chamber pop at its finest. There's this bombastic of what sounds like a stand-up bass kind of serving as the foundation of the tune, and some plucked strings kind of just galloping along, and there's these woodwinds that kind of come in and out, just floating. It's quite gorgeous and very colorful, so definitely check that out. Fiona Apple, Extraordinary Machine. Now let's get into some albums. And I think that in 2005, the South had a lot to say. And I'm talking, of course, about Andre 3000's famous speech of sorts, even though it was just one sentence that he uttered at the Source Awards 1995, I believe, Madison Square Garden. This is the height of the quote-unquote East Coast, West Coast feud. And when Outkast got up, they were booed. And Andre 3000 says, the South's got something to say. And boy, was that true. Especially in 2005. Starting off with Jeezy's Thug Motivation 101. This was the beginning of what we know as the trap sound, both in sound and in content. I think if T.I.'s trap music 2 years prior, in 2003, was the big bang of sorts of the Atlanta trap sound, I think Jeezy's Thug Motivation is like the galaxies and the nebulas and the stars that formed after the Big Bang, and then the influence of this album kind of formed its own solar system, if you will, if that makes any sense. But Thug Motivation is a motivating anthem, in my opinion. You know, you can listen to the lyrics and think of just drug content, but it's more than that. It's more of just building business acumen. And that's exactly what Jeezy did in the years following this album. What Jeezy and producer Shawty Redd did on this album, I don't think a Metro Boomin and Future would be possible, or a Weezy and Gunna would not have happened without what they did on this project. The production on this is the foundation of what the sound that is dominating hip hop right now. I think it all started with Jeezy's Thug Motivation. And the opening titular track is just, again, like I said, pure motivation. Some quotable lyrics. I used to hit the kitchen lights, cockroaches everywhere. Hit the kitchen lights, now it's marble floors everywhere. So he's telling you where he started and where he is now. It's incredible. I love it. And again, there's a lot of business aspirations here. He says he's Donald Trump in a white tee and white ones. The conversation is money. That's it. Doesn't that motivate you in any way? I don't know. For me, it's just, I remember my last semester of college, trying to get through papers. I had this album on, and it got me through those papers, those 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 page papers during the last, leg of the semester. You know how that is. Moving on to Danger Doom, Mouse and the Mask, a combo of MF Doom and producer Danger Doom. Lots of Adult Swim cameos up and down this album, especially Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Brack from the Brack Show. This whole album is hilarious. Lines like, order a rapper for lunch and spit out the chains on Sophie King. It's great. It's very, very entertaining. And The Mask, and I think around this time, and over the last decade or so, there were rumors floating around about a potential Ghostface and MF Doom collab album. Hopefully that happens in the near future, because they have incredible chemistry together, especially on this particular tune. It's like a great pro wrestling tag team. Excuse me. And on the end of this song, there's a Brack cameo, and he says, and I quote, "I got a mask too, so give me the mic." And then he proceeds to perform his best Gloria Estefan impression. It's remarkable. Definitely give this entire album and this song a listen. And Old School Rules on this album with Talib Kweli. This tune is very interesting because it just showcases the inspiration of cartoons, and this was a common theme amongst underground hip hop. A lot of critique on how to become a success in rap. You hear most popular tunes, especially around this time, you think it's there's one way. You have to sell yourself as a murderer or a gangster, quote unquote, hard, but not on this album. When you listen to like MF Doom, it's just being creative and entertaining. He's a rapper with a mask. I mean, come on, it's good stuff. And Talib talks about there's this element of nostalgia here, and not like in the sense that back in my day hip hop was this. It was just the simplicity of childhood. Watching cartoons and eating cereal. Yeah, and Mincemeat, one of my favorites on this album. It just showcases Doom's confidence. Like, he can rap over everything. And the refrain on this song showcases that immensely. He says, "I'll make mincemeat out of that beat mouse." I love that, because he's basically saying, again, like, I can do anything. Give me any kind of beat and I'll slaughter it. Quasimoto. His second album, The Further Adventures of Lord Quas, comes a year after MF Doom and Madlib's album, Mad Villainy. And this is 5 years after the legendary debut Quasimoto album, The Unseen. And this album is exactly what the title suggests. It's the further adventures of Quasimoto. And some of the songs on here are kind of like unofficial sequels to some of the songs on The Unseen. Like Bully Shit is basically just Bad Character 2. And I love the line, Doom nominated for the best rolled L's, Quas nominated for the best rolled spells. I think that's the lyric. I'm gonna double check that. I don't want to sound like a hack here. He says Doom nominated for the best rolled L, Quas nominated for the best sold spells, not rolled spells, because how can you roll a spell? But that's just Quasimoto being the villain, being the bad character. And Closer, it sounds like a leftover from Mad Villainy, and this is the closest we'll ever get to a Mad Villainy sequel. Doom is on here, and they're just showcasing the chemistry between Madlib and MF Doom and Quasimoto. There's just very sharp verses from all three of them, and it just makes you think, damn, what would happen if Quasimoto, Madlib, MF Doom, one whole album of just Quasimoto and MF Doom. Oh my god. Civilization Day. Love this tune. It's very groovy. There's some groovy, jazzy bass licks. And it's basically just preparing us for the end of Civilization. And another demo tape. This is great because this is a tale of rappers trying to quote-unquote get on and not focusing on your craft and creating your own space. You're trying to piggyback off of somebody else's success. Rap Cats Part 3. This kind of reminds me of, from The Unseen, I think it was Jazz Cats. And Madlib is just going through all of his rap influences. BDP, Ultramatic MCs, Public Enemy, Biz Markie, DJ Red Alert. And there's Raw Addict Part 3, which is essentially a sequel to Loop Digger, except he's not actually in a record store. It's not, you don't have that, that kind of sketch theme. It's, you know what I mean? It's not like a skit. It's just like a regular song, unlike Loop Digger from The Unseen. And this is just a tribute to how dedicated to our craft. Spending a lot of money on samples and break beats and whatever it is, some producers do, But yeah, the second Quasimoto album, I think, it's not really wildly talked about like The Unseen, but it's definitely worth a listen. You can hold this album up against any album. Moving on to Spoon's Gimme Fiction. And this is one of my favorite Spoon albums, and I'm sure it's a lot of people's. And this is typical of Spoon, but a lot of the songs on this album are so vague, and they kind of come off kind of poetic. At least, in my opinion. And this album was very commercially successful for the group. Especially, I Turned My Camera On, hit 44 on the Billboard 200. A lot of the songs on Gimme Fiction were featured in episodes of Bones, The Simpsons, Veronica Mars, Friday Night Lights, and even I Summon You was on an episode of Scrubs. And the one thing about this album is a lot of the tracks on here kind of sound like a nice, well-paced journey. You're rewarded for listening through the entire song. Like songs like My Mathematical Mind is just one of those tunes that you're not just hit with, here's the verse, here's the chorus, here's another verse, here's the chorus, here's the bridge. Nope. I don't think there even is a verse or a chorus, or I don't know where it begins or where it ends, but there's this massive crescendo on My Mathematical Mind that's just so gorgeous. And this tune is very piano centric, and by the end there's just like a gumbo pot of instrumentation with horns, bass, and a kind of spastic, almost free jazz like guitar solo. It's a work of art. Moving on to Foo Fighters, In Your Honor. This is their first double album. One side, 10 loud stadium rock anthems, and side 2, 10 all acoustic tracks. And they even built a brand new studio for this occasion, which I believe is now Studio 606. And going through the rock side of it, the last song, this is kind of a deep cut on this. You probably were expecting me to say Best of You, right? Not a bad song at all. The first time I heard that tune, I wasn't the biggest fan because I heard it so many times on a bunch of internet videos at the time. But it is a great song. But the last song, this tune is great for running. It's still on my running playlist right now. Very powerful and motivating lyrics. Something I found, that want to turn around. You've got to walk, to make any ground. Grohl repeats the walk phrase 3 times. And these lyrics are so profound because it kind of relates to everything going on right now. People protesting for police reform. You have to walk to make any ground. Now, I'm not saying that Dave Grohl was making this with protesting in mind, but he did. He wrote songs that to me kind of just made me think of protesting. It's gorgeous stuff. And moving on to side 2, the acoustic side, Razor. I think this is one of the best Foo Fighters songs. And it's not like a big rock, stadium filling, scream your head off tune, which what Foo Fighters are really good at. But they kind of, they took a chance of doing an all acoustic second disc. And Razor is so minimal. It's just Dave singing over these galloping acoustic guitar licks, and it's just gorgeous. It's stunning. And it's not what you would typically expect from Foo Fighters, even though a lot of their songs kind of, especially on their third album, kind of showcase their softer side. But this album shows you the best of both worlds, what Foo Fighters are really capable of doing. Kind of expands their artistry. Yeah, they can do loud, again, stadium-filling rock tunes, but they also can do beautiful acoustic tunes, and In Your Honor showcases that to the fullest. 2005, at least in my opinion, I think was a great year for Kanye West, because he not only put out his very famous Late Registration album, but he also produced Common's B album that came out this year, and one of the best songs Game has ever done, in Dreams, from his documentary album, also released in 2005. But starting with Late Registration, I think this album is the quote-unquote old Kanye album. I think this is where people want Kanye to return to. And this album was kind of Kanye moving into the pop world. And he's working with guys like Adam Levine, and even Gold Digger, which was monstrous. You can still hear that song. Till this day, you will hear Gold Digger at any party. I don't care where you are. Any Sweet 16, any wedding reception, you're going to hear Gold Digger. 15 years, Gold Digger. You're going to hear this song. Any party. This has become Kanye's like magnum opus as far as like party tunes are concerned. And this was the same year that Kanye West said George Bush doesn't care about black people. And he kind of talks about a lot of things going on in the black community on this album, as he does on most of his projects. And this was the first time I've ever heard Lupe Fiasco on Touch the Sky. And Late Registration is not my favorite Kanye album. For some, it is, but this is a great album, I think. And it's one of Kanye's best. I'm more of a Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy guy. That album is incredible and ages very well, just like this one. But I think Twisted Fantasy was more concise. And I think this album was longer and there's a lot of skits on it. I think Some of his later work was more tighter and just kind of flowed better, in my opinion. But Late Registration is definitely worth a listen. And moving on to Common's B, heavily produced by Kanye West. And I've had a lot of conversations with other Common fans and in years past, and they've always said, yeah, B is Common's best album. And at the time, I didn't really think so. I think it's one of his best. I was a big fan of Like Water for Chocolate, and what was his 97 album? One Day Would All Make Sense. Those albums I love till this day, but I have to say, B is one of Common's best album, if not his best album. It ages so well, and a lot of the songs on here are so powerful, like the intro, the titular track. He says, "We got arms but won't reach for the sky. The president is a gift and I just want to be." That has become my mantra, but with recent events going on, it's really hard to kind of just be, because as we've seen, a lot of black people are killed or harassed for just being, just existing. So it was kind of hard for me to just be for a little while. The Corner. This song is a great report of what's going on in the Chicago streets, and even throughout the rest of the country. It just shows you how crime is a result of economic disparity. On the hook, Kanye says, "On the corner, niggas robbing, killing, dying just to make a living." Powerful stuff. And I love when Common said, "The beast roam the street, the police is Greek-like." To me, maybe he had a different meaning to this, but this line kind of comes across as the police are kind of like, almost like a fraternity, like they stick together. Like whenever somebody says police, any kind of cop or the police in general does something bad, they're not being held accountable. The police, they all stick together. They don't. Well, no, I'm not gonna say all of them, but some don't. They stick up for the police even if they do something bad. Like I hold all the quote unquote good cops together, like accountable for holding their fellow police officers accountable for the mistakes they do. Because think about it, we have Black Lives Matter, and a response to that is Blue Lives Matter. It has a lot of fraternity. It just reeks of frat boyisms. And I think, I don't know, from my perspective, I think that's what Common was kind of getting at. Well, this is before Black Lives Matter formed, but kind of like this police are sticking together and not trying to help, and more just kind of building themselves up, you know what I mean? Kind of like a gang. And I really love Go on this project. It's probably one of my favorite love tunes, specifically about sex. He has a lot of great lines like, "Said I was bait for her, the master." Wow. I love that line. He says, "Like rain when she came it poured." Woo. Wow. Sultry. I love the John Mayer feature here. He says "go," and the phrase kind of just echoes beautifully. Love this song. And then there's Shy City. And this tune is kind of like a critical of the current rap landscape, at least at this time. And Common says, hilariously, "So many raps about rims, I'm surprised niggas ain't become tires on the streets." That's hilarious. I love that. But I do think B is if you ask me, I want to listen to Common. Where do I start? B. You start with this album. Moving on to Games, the documentary, specifically Dreams. Kanye West produced it, and this song is so powerful. It's dedicated to Yetunde Price, the half-sister of Venus and Serena Williams, who died in a drive-by shooting in Compton back in 2003. And also, I think this song kind of tributes to great black artists, especially ones that died young. And at the same time, Game is telling his story and living out the dreams of these young artists who died. In the chorus, he says, "Martin Luther King had a dream, Aaliyah had a dream, Left Eye had a dream, He's essentially carrying out their dreams, or at least trying to. This is one of the best songs Game has ever done, period. Beck, he put out a great album this year in 2005, Guero. What's interesting about Guero, and I didn't know this, he released this album for PSP. And the PlayStation Portable had its own media format called UMD. It was kind of like this weird circular shaped form you put into the console, and they had DVDs for it. It was like a PS2 you could put in your pocket. And you could listen to music on it too. And I had no idea that it was released for this kind of format. I wonder how many people actually bought it. I wonder if you can still buy it now. I haven't looked into it. But this album was very... Also, actually, the PSP was actually released in 2005 too. So this album was very colorful and has, like a typical Beck album, it has a wide array of influences that encompasses hip-hop, blues, jazz, pop, folk, and almost every song. These are some of Beck's catchiest songs ever. Almost every song is extremely catchy. It's an earworm. Like, all these songs can be played on the radio. Like, all these songs sound like hit records. Girl, K on the Guero, Black Tambourine, Go It Alone, and he actually had Jack White play bass on Go It Alone. If you want pretty bright melodies with really unique and strange and beautiful arrangements, this is the album for you. Guero from Beck. And speaking of Jack White, the White Stripes put out an album this year, Get Behind Me, Satan. Not one of their best albums, but definitely one of the most interesting. You know, you have your simple, your classic Stripe sound, the very ferocious garage rock. But this album had that, but mixing in a lot of Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton-esque country, but in Jack White style. Not sounding like those two, but just all of it. He has a wide array of influences, is my point. Songs like Blue Orchid, fantastic intro track. There's a lot of great... This was definitely a year of phenomenal intro tracks. Love this song. Jack White's falsetto, beautiful stuff. This song is very quick, full of life, and this is like a blueprint, not the blueprint, but a blueprint of how to write a quick, short tune. And the riff on this is just infectious. It'll never leave your head. One of the most unique songs on this album, I think, in my opinion, is The Nurse. There's the focus on this tune is actually not the guitar. You know, it's the mbira, which is the predecessor to the xylophone. And throughout this song, there's like small bursts of explosive guitar riffs that come in and out abruptly without any warning. This is, I definitely check it out. It's definitely an interesting listen. And then there's My Doorbell, which is classic cheesy White Stripes at their finest. I mean cheesy in the best way, because White Stripes are good at that. Has a bright, pleasant melody, very, very catchy hook, another great piano-heavy tune, and it's just pretty. It's pretty, it's bright, it's just has a friendly aura to it. And then there's Instinct Blues, one of my favorite tunes on this album. It's exactly what the title suggests. It's a raw blues tune with a very heavy, noisy, crunchy riff. Yeah, this is definitely an interesting White Stripes album. I think before they broke up in 2010, Get Behind Me, Satan is probably their last great album. You know, Icky Thump wasn't the greatest, but I think they took a lot of chances and definitely try to reshape or remorph and evolve their sound on this project. And last but certainly not least, the great Queens of the Stone Age. They put out their Lullabies to Paralyze album. This was a very dark album in my opinion. You know, Songs for the Deaf was pretty dark, but it was more desert than dark. And it was kind of entertaining in a way because the radio interludes kind of had comic relief on the album, but this was just dark and spooky and gloomy tunes that were also very exciting and full of life, don't get me wrong. And Queens of the Stone Age, always a unique band, in my opinion. I think they stood out from all of their other contemporaries. And this album, I think, again, was pretty commercial friendly, even with a lot of their dark, deep cuts. And it starts off with a very mellow lullaby. The track is called a lullaby. And right after that, we have the very brief but very caffeine-induced medication. Again, another great blueprint to how to write a great song under 2 minutes. And I think this album is pretty damn goth, in my opinion. Songs like Burn the Witch, Someone's in the Wolf, The Blood is Love is just so gloomy and dark and mysterious. It's like you're getting lost in a dark forest on Halloween. It's exactly what it is. But the songs are kind of very has a romantic twist in the goth sense. And this album had some of their catchiest tunes, I think. Like, In My Head, if you hear this song once, the hook will never escape you. It just won't. And that wraps up 2005 here on My Little Underground. I'm Peter A. Please rate, subscribe anywhere you get podcasts, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at MLU Pod, and follow me, Peter A, Twitter, Instagram. It's Peter_A. All right, later days.